so lonely, broken angel. I'm so lonely.
Bill Richardson in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to Hardtalk.
Thank you, Stephen. Nice to be with you.
I want to tap into your wide experience in Washington, inside an administration and as a congressman and indeed as a former UN ambassador for the United States. When you look at foreign policy making in America today, how are the big strategic decisions being made?
Well, unfortunately, I think they're being made on the fly, on the spur of the moment, by the president, by tweets. And I don't like the disarray. I'm a traditionalist. I think diplomacy is a very important statecraft. And I worry that we don't have a national security team in place, that the president, while making a right decision to meet with Kim Jong-un, might not be prepared, that he's listening to his political instincts as opposed to what's in the best foreign policy of the United States. So I'm very unsettled, yet at the same time, on this North Korea issue, I think the right approach was a face-to-face meeting, but I wonder if we will be prepared.
I'm intrigued that you actually approve of the notion, to many people, shocking notion of a Trump-Kim Jong-un summit. I want to get to that, but before we do get there, just tell me, in your experience, what does it say that Rex Tillerson, for example, only learned of that summit, we understand, by reading it on Twitter? He only learned of his own dismissal by reading about it on Twitter. I mean, what does that say about the way the president operates?
Well, it says that it's an undisciplined approach. It says that obviously Tillerson and the president did not have personal chemistry. I think Tillerson was more moderate. He wanted to stay in the Iran nuclear deal. He wanted diplomacy with North Korea a lot earlier. He wanted to be tougher on Russia, and they just didn't mesh. The chemistry wasn't there. It's very important for a president and his chief foreign policy advisor to basically have confidence in each other. That didn't happen, but I just think the unceremonious way that Tillerson was dumped, the unceremonious way decisions are made on personnel, White House staff, there are reports that the National Security Advisor, McMaster, may be next. I know him. He's a capable man. And I worry that the president just wants to have around him individuals that will not disagree with him, that will just reinforce his views, which in many cases, I believe, are not internationalist views, are not the best in the interest of the United States.
Well, we are going to talk plenty about North Korea, but I actually want to start the substance with Russia, partly because it's a huge issue in the UK as a result of the nerve agent attack on a former Soviet agent, Sergei Skripal, in a town in the UK along with his daughter. That's obviously caused huge tensions between London and Moscow. But also it's interesting that, going back to Tillerson and his firing, he chose, after his firing, to very pointedly make these remarks about Russia. He said, much work remains to respond to the troubling behavior and actions of the Russian government, and he warned that Russia could face yet greater isolation. Do you think that Tillerson was pushing Donald Trump to confront Putin in a way that Donald Trump simply doesn't want to do?
Yes, I do think he was trying to push the president in the right direction, which was to stand with you guys. You're our main ally, and the evidence is overwhelming that this nerve agent was deposited by the Russians. You have concrete proof. And we, the United States, should stand behind you. Yes, the press secretary should, the Secretary of State should, but I haven't heard the president himself say, we stand with Great Britain, with the prime minister, with the enormous evidence, and Russia should stop. They've interfered in our election. There has been substantial demonstrations of that involvement certified by our intelligence agencies. So Russia, you should stop doing this. You should stop doing this to our allies, to the United States. Stop getting involved in elections throughout the world, which they're doing. I didn't hear that from the president. So I think Tillerson was nudging him, and obviously we still haven't heard it. I want to see the president. I want him to succeed. I want him to stand behind our allies like you guys that are facing this real dilemma in your foreign policy with an important state actor.
Several points come out of what you've just said. I mean, it should be said, the newly re-elected Vladimir Putin describes allegations that Russia, the Russian state, was behind the attack on Mr. Skripal's drivel and nonsense. So we need to put that on the record. But also, you know, are you being fair to Donald Trump? I mean, he did ultimately come out and issue a joint statement alongside the UK, Germany, and France, condemning the outrageous attack in the UK. And just last week, the US expanded its sanctions against targeted individuals in Russia. So, you know, when you compare Trump with Obama, is Trump doing so much less on Russia than Obama did?
Well, in my view, he's not doing enough. Yes, he made that joint statement, but I want to hear him also with our election. I mean, it's very strong evidence by our intelligence agency of enormous involvement in the election. Maybe it didn't decide the U.S. presidential election. I've yet to hear the president in very strong terms condemn what Russia did, the president himself. And yes, all right, we're making joint statements, but I want to see that outrage because Vladimir Putin was reelected, you know, some say with 107% of the vote. I saw that. Maybe he will now recognize that he's got to be a world leader again that is responsible in the next 6 years. But their continued interference in so many activities around the world and elections, it's incomprehensible. Yes, Russia wants to get restored as a major power again, but not at the expense of human rights and people and possible nerve agent killings and Syria conspiring with Assad. Maybe now Putin will change. I doubt it, but that's my hope.
I'm so lonely, broken.